You are listening to the Morris County Business Podcast with your friend, host, and all-around good guy and co-owner of Get It Cleaned, Paul Valverde. Now, on to the show.
Hello, Morris County successful and thriving business owners and entrepreneurs. I'm so glad to be here with you today. I'm so pumped to have Ed Bishop from Ed Bishop Voiceovers here with me today. Ed, what's up, man? What's going on?
Not a lot. I'm here in Texas today, and I'm telling you, it's a 73-degree day, so I can't complain.
Nice. So envious of you right now. Listen, Ed, when you go to the supermarket, when you go to the doctor's office, do people compliment you on your voice?
You know, not generally, but when I do start telling people what I do, that kind of clicks with them. They're like, oh, I can see that. Like, I don't notice it myself. You know what I mean? Because I hear myself all the time.
Yeah.
But people do say stuff like that. Once they kind of know what I do, they're like, oh, okay, that makes sense.
And when somebody asks you, what do you do for a living? How do you respond to that?
I have fun. I have fun for a living. I get to talk a lot. I tell them that I speak for people. Basically, I'm a voiceover person, and I create commercials. And most of the time, they're always like, "Have I heard you?" And chances are they have. Somewhere along the way. It's just with little jobs I've done all over the place, globally now even, and so at some point they probably heard me. Maybe they didn't hear me, but I was somewhere in the background, maybe. So.
I'm sure there are people who are watching us right now or listening to the podcast. They're like, wait, is this the guy from the intro? And the answer, folks, is yes. He is the voice from the intro. I got to tell you, Ed, I searched, it has to be probably over 100 people. And one of the reasons I approached you, it wasn't just because of your voice. It was just the remarkable reviews you had. Everybody was so pleased to work with you. And quickly, once we got in touch, I realized why everybody loves you so much. I mean, you're very responsive, very helpful. So it's a double pleasure for me, not only to have you as the voice in the intro and outro, but also to have you as a guest in the show today.
Well, I really appreciate that, because it is hard. It's hard to get new business when there's so much competition out there. And the world that we live in is all about reviews and your reputation. And it's so evident everywhere now that it's amazing that I can have a demo that could sound really good, but so do a lot of other people. But that little thing, that having the people down there that kind of back you, they're your fans, because you treat them well. And it just comes full circle in a lot of different ways,
Yeah. And I think for you, it's just something natural. Like, it's not an effort that you have to, it's just the way you are as a person. I could feel that vibe, man. And I appreciate that.
Well, thank you. It's funny. I talk in front of a mic all the time, but I'm not the greatest talking in crowds, or a few times I've had to go to colleges and talk to just small classes. I'm generally not that. I'm not good at that. But like a one-on-one like this, even though other people are going to be watching and listening, but it's funny. Once I started working on different platforms and freelancing, the communication I love. I do love the communication with people. I love talking to them. Yeah.
Ed, something that I read in your bio that caught my attention was that when you turned about 18 years old, you realized, or you decided, that you didn't want to work a job. So no. Tell me about that.
Yeah, I mean, who does at age 18? Nobody wants to work, But I remember thinking of all the little jobs I had, restaurants, stores, mowing lawns, whatever it was. I just remember thinking, like, how am I ever going to live? How am I ever going to get through life? Because I don't want to do this. And I was thinking, I'm going to end up with nothing because I don't want to. And not like I didn't have any ambition. I didn't want to work. So I luckily just stumbled upon something that a commercial that I saw late at night for a broadcasting school. And I'm like, that looks kind of fun. Maybe I'll try that. And man, I'm telling you, like, once I started doing that, it wasn't work. Like I was going to a little bit of college at the time, community college. And again, another thing, I was like, oh, I don't know what I want to do. I was listening to guidance counselors that they were telling me what to do, and I still wasn't sold on it, So I didn't want to even in college. I'm like, what am I doing, And I saw that commercial. And once I started going to that broadcast school, after the first day, all I wanted to do was be there the next day. Nice. And that's when I knew I wanted to do this. And it wasn't like my typical going to school or a typical job. I wanted to go. Even when I started working initially in my career, I was a radio DJ in the very beginning out of that school. I would get off the air. I was doing overnights. I'd get off the air at 6 a.m. and I could not wait to go back to work. Like I never thought in my life I would ever think I can't wait to go. I didn't want time off. I wanted to work because it was fun, you know? So that's kind of how it happened. And that was at age 20, I was 19 when I finally got situated into a job. So
about 19, you went into this broadcasting school, and eventually you had a job as a DJ overnight in the radio, right?
Mhm.
And what has your trajectory been since?
Up and down the East Coast, because that's the thing with radio. It was super competitive. This was in the early 90s, and you had to move a lot if you wanted to get anywhere. It wasn't like there's not a lot of radio stations in certain areas. There's only so many.
Yeah.
So those jobs get taken quick. Everybody wants one. It's so competitive. So I had moved up and down the East Coast, Florida, North Carolina, Massachusetts, Jersey Shore, upstate New York, Philadelphia, whatever. And I just got to a point where I realized two things. I wasn't that good at being a DJ because I didn't like the music. I didn't feel back then it was like, NSYNC and type of the music I wasn't into at the time. I was more into like rock music, right? So that was part of it. And the other half was I didn't feel like moving all over the place. I wanted to find something where I could stay stable. I didn't want to have to pick up and leave when the next opportunity arose somewhere else. So I luckily I walked into a production studio in the radio station, and there was a computer there. It was when computers just kind of started making their way into production. And I started playing. Nobody else touched it. It sat there for 4 or 5 months, and I finally started playing around with it. And I really started realizing the potential you could do with production. And from that point on, I made the change. I don't want to be on the air anymore. I want to do commercials and do something where I can sit in that studio and make it perfect before anybody hears it. I can't like screw it up. Like I could on the air. I would mess up all the time, play the wrong song, say the wrong thing, accidentally curse here and there because I forgot to turn the mic off. So I couldn't do that in a production studio because you have to perfect it before it goes on the air. Maybe it's not perfect, but you have to get it right. So those were some reasons there. And from that point on, I realized I belong in the production studio. And that's when my career kind of really took off in a way where I found I was really good at. And other people thought I was good at it. So it gave me some really good opportunities. From that point is when my career got serious. I mean, it was still fun. Trust me, to this day, it's fun. But it wasn't just about fun. At that point, it became something like, okay, I can see me doing this until I die.
Yeah.
Being a DJ, maybe not. But this, I was like, I found it, And then from there, that was in the mid 90s. I was lucky enough. My first production director job was in New Jersey. It was in Manahawkin, but the stations were broadcast out of Toms River. So it was the Toms River market.
Yeah.
So it was from LBI all the way up to Belmar, like that whole strip down. I worked for a couple stations there. There was one called B98.5, which is a top 40 station. The Point 94.3, The Point. That's in Point Pleasant. WOBM, probably heard of that. That's soft rock. They're down in, they were in Toms River. So that was my break for getting a full-time production job. And then from there, being just in the shadow of Philadelphia, luckily my transition was into Philadelphia. And from there, I got a little break in New York and worked there too, in New York City and in Philadelphia. So it was a fun ride along the way. And, I've been very lucky, and I've worked with some really, really fun people, really cool people, and really talented people that I learned a lot from, So
what would you say are some of the greatest lessons you've learned being in business?
Don't let other people, I don't know if this comes with experience. Maybe it's between experience and age. Getting a little older, you kind of care a little less about what other people think. And I don't mean that in a bad way. You don't let that friction stop you, what other people are saying about maybe what you should be doing or how you should go with your gut. I mean, that's always been the thing. And just for me, imagination. If I could think of the way I wanted something to sound, I had all the tools to do it. So it was up to me to do it.
Yeah.
So instead of talking about it, doing it, and there's something to be said for that as well. Just at the end of the day, you may have complained throughout the day that, oh, I didn't even get a break. I didn't get a chance to eat lunch. But at the end of the day, it's gratifying because you did something, you built something, you made something. And that, as now a business owner myself, my own, business, it's tenfold when it's for yourself because it's even more of an accomplishment for you, So I would say just not being concerned with everyone else and just treat people the way you want to be treated and just be professional at all times, whether that be on your personal social media account nowadays, just be professional. Yeah. I mean, that's just key. I think, for me.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think has been or is some of the challenges you face as as running your business? Like what are some of the difficult parts about it?
Well, I still have a full-time job that I do. I produce TV promos for an actual small TV digital network. So luckily I still have a full-time job and my side job is full-time. So I am working 2 full-time jobs. So I don't have the stress of a lot of people that have their own business where if their business dips, they're in trouble. Like at least I still have a full-time salary so that part I'm lucky with. But one of the hardest things to do is just to get new business and understand that it doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen in a couple months. It takes years. It takes years to really get to a point where, unless you're very, very lucky, not even lucky, unless just something goes your way, But I think patience. But one of my challenges was how to get it rolling when there's so many other talented people out there that how do you stand out?
Yeah. How do you distinguish yourself from other good people?
Yep. And it's said all the time and there's nothing further from the truth. That's more true than that. Yeah. I mean, that is exactly what it is. It's just being able to stand out and make people look at you opposed to the thousands of people around you.
And what would you say are some of the most exciting projects you've been a part of?
I've been lucky. I've worked on a lot of really cool things. I mean, in the very beginning of my career, I was working in Fort Myers, Florida at a production house. It was one of the first ones at the time that could digitally connect with other areas. So there was a narrator who passed away probably about 7 or 8 years ago. His name was Peter Thomas. He's been narrating. He died at 92 years old. He had been narrating since he was 16. So like the 1940s. He was the guy throughout all of narrations. He's on the you watch the Discovery Channel, you watched any of Nova. Remember the show Nova? You'd see PBS. He was the guy, and I got to meet him. And he would come into our studios in Florida, and he would sit down. And he was 70 at the time, and his wife was there. They were both just a sweet old little couple. And he would come in, and I got to sit there and watch him through glass do his thing, and he would just talk. Like he didn't have to. Like me at that time, I was trying to be a commercial. I was trying to talk like I was doing everything that I thought I was doing right. And then I would look at him and I was like, wait, he sounds exactly the same as when he's asking me how I'm doing as he does. That's the key. It took me a long time to I'm not even say I'm ever going to be to that point, but to realize that it's just about talking, not being a commercial, but that was one of the best things in the beginning of my career. But, man, I got to produce the audio for the Philadelphia Eagles radio network for 8 years.
Nice.
And that was on 14 stations throughout Jersey, all the way into Pennsylvania. So every time anybody would listen to an Eagles game, I got to package all those intros up and put that stuff together. And that was cool. I wasn't an Eagles fan. I was a Giants fan. I'm from New York.
Go Giants.
But they didn't know that. Yeah, it was funny because when I actually was leaving there, I was coming to Texas. They're like, don't lose the Eagles green. And at that point, I was like, I'm a Giants fan. It was kind of funny. Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, those are just a handful. I've been very, very, got to meet a lot of singers, artists. One of my favorite bands is AC/DC. I grew up loving them as a rock band, and I got to meet them in Philadelphia. So I've been really, really lucky with a very, very fun career. Yeah.
Nice. Ed, what are some of the services that you provide that can help local business owners, people here in the Morris County area in New Jersey?
Mhm.
What are some of the things that maybe you've done in the past or you see yourself being involved in the future that can probably help someone who's listening to us or viewing us right now?
Sure. I do voiceovers primarily, but I also work with people to create commercials for their business. Anything audio, I can help with. I have video editors too. So if you have a small business and you have, a product that you need a video and a narration done for, I do that kind of things. If you advertise on radio and you need commercials from top to bottom, if you come to me and you just say, "Hey, I have a whatever shop, what I sell this or that," it's important that people. I worked in radio my whole career, but it's important that people understand that when you go to a radio station to get your commercial done, they're not necessarily telling you how to do the commercial. They're just doing the commercial along with a bunch of other ones. So it's kind of an assembly line.
Yeah.
I always told our clients that would come in, I used to love it when the clients would actually come into the station to record their commercials. I'd get talking to them and just explain to them, listen, like, it's important that your commercial is about you. Don't let it be about the radio station or anything else. You know what I mean? It's your station. So you want to represent that on the air. And that's what I try to do to people, do for people when they ask me for their help. I find out about their business. I do the research. I get everything that they want to do, and we focus it, and we just make it, I guess, focused. We focus
tailor fit to their industry, to their business.
Yep. And knowing who their audience is. It's really hard for people to understand their client. I say audience because I talk to people.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's hard for people sometimes to look at themselves from the outside because they want to, they'll say, well, yeah, I want to talk to everyone. Everyone is my customer. It's true. Everyone can be your customer, but there's got to be that little bit of a window where you have to talk to a certain whatever.
Yeah.
And then from there, you can still use that as a way to have other people come in, because if you don't have that one angle, then you kind of are lost, and you can lose somebody by trying to talk to everybody. But you may not, if you just kind of narrowed in on exactly who you are, it will trickle in if it's done right,
And knowing who's their perfect prospect, right? Who's their perfect customer. That way they can really like laser beam focus the messaging.
You talk right directly to that person because that's the person that needs you.
Yeah.
The other people, like if say it's a car dealership, it's a bad one because car dealerships are all the time. But say it is just a car dealership, but your commercial's focusing on something that a truck that's geared maybe more male, older male, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's who you want to talk to in that commercial because that's who typically buys that truck. But at the same time, you're only really talking to somebody who is in the market for a truck at that exact moment.
Yep.
Which is very rare. Not many people are thinking, I want to buy a car, and they hear, oh, I'm going to go buy it. Nobody hears a commercial on the radio and says, I'm going to go buy a car this weekend. It just doesn't happen. Yeah. You have to be in the need for that. So when it comes to certain things, it just has to be awareness. People have to know you're there so that when they need that truck, they think of, oh, Paul's Truck Service. Oh, okay. You got to be top of mind when it comes to certain things. So just being on people's mind when they need what you sell or provide is, I think, super important. So it's better to talk to that person, like you said, that target audience, and then it will work from there,
Yeah. And I think it puts you in a better position as well, because if you've done a good job with your messaging, with the message that you are conveying to your perfect prospect, then by the time they come to you, they're already educated and they already appreciate you. They know you, they trust you. There's already some sort of relationship, which makes the experience even a lot more pleasant. So absolutely. Yeah, right on.
Yeah. And that's branding. It's just, it's like you meet someone, they got a great personality, you're going to remember them, and it's the same with any sort of advertisement. If you come off exactly who you are, authentic, whatever it is, that's important. Yeah. So back to what you're saying, what I could offer, what I do offer is that like more of a customized approach, so that you're not just listing off a bunch of things you do with the music bed underneath you. You're talking to a person, a potential client or a potential customer, you know? So that's a little different, you know? So
Ed, if people want to find you, get in touch with you, get a hold of you, what are the places where they can find you? How can they reach out to you?
The best way is you can go to my website, which is edbishopvoiceovers.com. And you can connect with me through there, or just email ed@edbishopvoiceovers.com. And up there, it doesn't necessarily break down the commercial process work or whatever. It just shows a lot of my voiceover stuff and a lot of the commercials I've worked on. But that's a good way to, get to me. And you can at least hear up there, oh, okay, that's what he sounds like. Oh, okay. And then you can email me any questions. I mean, even if you don't need my services, if you just have a question about any input, hey, Ed, I'm advertising on this station. What do you think of this commercial? Send me a commercial and I'll give you my honest opinion with no obligation. I might at the end say, hey, here's what I might try. So I might throw my own little spin on it, but I love to just tell people, hey, listen, this is what I think would work a little better for you, and this may not. Again, it's nothing against radio stations, but they're so busy all the time. There's not a lot of individualism, and repetition. Go for shorter commercials a lot more often than a long commercial. So that's just advice. That's
great advice.
Radio. Yeah.
So. Ed, thank you very much. I'm gonna make sure to we're gonna make sure to link your information to the different mediums through which we're showing this video and this podcast. And there you have it, folks. Ed Bishop from Ed Bishop Voiceovers. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure having you.
Thanks for tuning in to today's show. If you or someone you know would like to be a guest on the show, go to morriscountybusinesspodcast.com. That's morriscountybusinesspodcast.com. We can't wait to get to know you and your business. You can also visit our website to learn about sponsorship opportunities and how to qualify for a complimentary gift. Thanks again for listening to the Morris County Business Podcast.